Welcome to the Astrology and Spirituality Overview Show for Sunday the 10th of January with Elisa and Patrick. So, welcome, and Elisa, what cards have you chosen today?
Well, today we're going to use the Healing with the Angels Oracle cards because heaven knows we need some healing on this planet. It was a good one, wasn't it?
It was, actually.
Right, so this one's poking out. So it says spiritual growth. I think this is pretty apt for many of us on the planet right now. I was talking to somebody the other day, it may have been a client actually, and we were talking about the fact that through a lot of trials and tribulations in our life, massive spiritual growth can happen. There has been a lot of scientific studies done that we actually learn the most through suffering in our lives. Now, that's not to say that suffering is good. Obviously, it would be good if we could have a world that didn't have that kind of suffering. But we do expand and grow exponentially when we have those challenges. And so it could be that all the challenges that we've been facing, not just this year, but over many years on the planet, but also in our own, family structures. Maybe some of us have been having issues. It is about that causing us to grow in a very spiritual way.
Didn't you watch a video about 2 days ago where someone had written a symphony based on the brainwaves of people who suffered stress?
Yeah, it was fantastic. So it was, they took all the data off the Fitbit watches, I know, Big Brother, and what they did was they monitored people's stress levels for the entire year of 2020, starting from, the Australian fires at the beginning of the year through to when COVID really ramped up around the globe. And they've turned the stress waves into a symphony, so you can physically hear what the year sounded like. It's fantastic. I mean, it's very melancholy, parts of it, but it's just so interesting that we're doing that as a human species.
Could you find that?
Yeah, I'll pop the link down beneath this video.
Underneath.
Definitely.
Yeah,
check it out.
That'd be great. Because we've had the building work going on here, Elisa shared it with me briefly because I'm in Elisa's office at the moment. Obviously in a very humble way because I'm aware who holds the power. Clearly.
My office.
In her office, indeed. So I haven't had a chance to actually take that in properly myself. Today we do have Mercury in an exact conjunction with Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius. Now, ordinarily, this would give us a real buoyancy, I think, around sociability, connectivity, networks, friendship, and the higher principles and things that motivate us. But of course, we do have Mars squaring from Taurus to Saturn just in front of Mercury and Jupiter. So we have Mars square Saturn, it's causing tension, and we have Mercury and Jupiter moving into a square with Uranus, which continues to retreat in the sign of Taurus, and in fact is in retrograde until the 14th, which I think is Thursday, when it goes direct, having started its retrograde on the 11th of August 2020. So what we've got is the principles of Aquarius, the thinking of the future, thinking of the big picture, being a bit more detached against the more potentially materially focused energies of Mars in the sign of Taurus, which it moved into last week. And of course, Uranus has been there part-time in 2018 for 5 months, and then from March the 7th to 19, Uranus has been in Taurus in its fall, so it's not its best location. And Mars in Taurus is very much about gaining traction around the things that are important to us in a more earthly way, whereas of course the sign of Aquarius is air, so it is about ideas, philosophies, and that bigger picture featuring person kind. So we are seeing, for example, what's happened in Hong Kong. We've seen the Chinese government have imposed the security bill there last year, and now they're just rounding up, as they see it, the dissidents who had the student or part of the student riots last year and then the year before. Very much Mars square Saturn, and Jupiter is about principles and philosophies square Mars as well. So ruthless acts in order to suppress humanity. And then of course we've seen what's happened on Capitol Hill, which is very tragic. Of course, your view of that may depend on your politics if you are an American watcher, but certainly we don't want to see anybody getting killed or shot because we have a disagreement that goes to that level. So there has been a lot of tension this last week, and people perhaps are getting too concerned with their immediate opinion rather than stepping back and being a bit more Aquarius about it, being a bit more detached and taking time to think things through. So that's what we all need to do today. The moon's also in Sagittarius, like Aquarius, very freedom loving. So a good time today to sort of have a discussion and try and be a bit more rational rather than so emotionally linked into our desires and needs.
I love that, because of course our opinions can change in life. You know, you've taught me that.
Yeah.
And so
we did have a massive discussion about this when we met.
Yeah, we did.
Because you said that people, Elisa was basically alluding to the fact that in inverted commas, leopards never change their spots, so that people have, and I said, well, I feel that people do change and people do have a right to change. Of course, not everybody is so attuned to personal development, but I do think it's possible. And but now I feel that you do feel.
Yeah, I do think that people can change. I mean, I
didn't used to like Christmas jumpers.
You didn't, and now you do, and you know, childlike movies. We do like watching them now, but you sat through SpongeBob for me, so I guess people can change.
Yeah, so we have a need perhaps to be aware that even the things that we're invested in, which might be very much to do with opinions, are being, in a very subtle but a higher harmonic way, being influenced by the negative right angle between the North Node and Neptune. Neptune distorts. There's a lot of distortion. Now, Twitter have closed down President Trump's Twitter feed, apparently forever. Now, that's an interesting pushback against hate speech. We're probably going to get a lot of feedback from this in a negative way, but they haven't done it for no reason, put it this way. So he's a controversial person, you either love him or hate him. In Britain, we have a product called Marmite, so we say people are Marmite people. So Trump is probably a Marmite person, you either love him or hate him. But certainly that kind of very impassioned speaking, but that's not based on fact, it's based on trying to steer opinion, is something that I think is going to be scrutinised a lot over the next few years. And I really predict that some of the social media platforms themselves are going to come under much greater scrutiny and perhaps are going to be held much more accountable for only sharing factual information. Because what we're doing is poisoning the soul of the Western world by allowing so much lying to go on unchecked on the basis that everyone's entitled to an opinion. We need to get things down to a more sincere level of opinion that is more factually based, because that way that gives us a sense of decency again.
Yeah, we can have a proper conversation about things when it's based on fact.
Yeah, and the sign of Aquarius is also co-ruled by Uranus. And Uranus, as obviously people know, is the planet of rebelliousness and change, and can create tension and friction. And it can also be quite quirky and erratic. But also Uranus is essentially about truth. And the glyph of the water bearer for Aquarius, often people say, well, why is it a water bearer for an air sign? It's because essentially Aquarius is linked to the principle of baptism. In other words, higher ideals for the whole of personkind. So we have an opportunity as Saturn and Jupiter kick off the journey. Saturn started it on the 22nd of March to the 2nd of August last year when it went through the sign of Aquarius. But over the next 2.25 years, as Saturn stays in Aquarius and then is joined in 2023 on a part-time basis by Pluto, full-time basis Pluto in 24, we are going to see a much greater shift towards what's good for personkind, even if we still celebrate the right of individuality and the right of people to be very much their own person, which is very, very important. We don't want top-down management, which unfortunately is what's happening in China in a very powerful way. So, yeah, a lot of themes there, but essentially the main thing is you can change and you can end up liking Christmas jumpers.
And sharing an office.
And sharing an office with the boss.
With us. So if you would like to read your written daily horoscope, you can find that in the description box down beneath this video, along with that Fitbit Stress Symphony.
Yeah, that's a great one. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful Sunday for now from the A. Oh, thanks, Tim. Tim Pruitt has said with all our different A's that we're...
Oh, yeah, you did. I can't remember the exact word you used, Tim, but it was...
I suppose we could also be the agenda.
Agenda. Yeah, okay.
What else? You get the drift,
Get
not.
the drift.
Right, okay,
Anyway,
we go. This is my Tony Blair.
Hashtag A-team.
Great, new Britain, new Labour. Go, let's go, yeah.
Oh, no.
Don't tell Gordon.
Tony Blair for a while.
I'm Gordon, don't
He's not
Tony
come out for a while.
No, let's do this, do that, yeah. Okay, for now, good luck and goodbye.
Goodbye.